no navel, no genitals, and copper crystals inside the bone marrow. What if the Greys aren't just aliens? What if they are biological machines manufactured by someone else? I'm William, and today we reveal the details of the autopsy of the Grey. The anatomical details of the entity known as the Grey originate from a comprehensive report released by a molecular biologist on social media. He claims that between the late 2000s and the mid-2010s, he was part of a highly classified project managed by a national security contractor. The objective of this project was crystal clear: to map the genome and the proteome of the Grey. In other words, they wanted to understand fundamentally what this biological entity actually is. Now, research into extraterrestrial biology is not exactly new. In other black budget programs, this kind of study has been ongoing for decades. The Grey is merely one of several biological entities that have been catalogued. However, the introduction of high-throughput DNA sequencing technologies in the late 90s acted like an accelerator pedal for the entire field. According to the source, their laboratory was situated within the Battelle National Biodefense Institute at Fort Detrick, Maryland. The surface level of this facility conducts standard biomedical research. But the true secrets? They are buried deep in the underground restricted zones. It is reported that in these specific sectors, the remains of the Greys are preserved in vacuum-sealed, humidity-controlled environments at -80 degrees Celsius. Some of the bodies are incomplete, showing signs of extreme trauma, consistent with catastrophic vehicular accidents or crashes. The genetics of the Grey are far more shocking than anyone anticipated. Just like us, their genetic information is encoded within DNA. Based on current research, the implication is staggering. We and they might actually share a common origin. They are classified as eukaryotes. This means their cells possess a nucleus containing genetic material. This suggests that their evolutionary branch likely split off after the emergence of eukaryotic life. The Grey possesses 16 distinct ring-shaped chromosomes. But here is the most incredible part. Their genes are compatible with ours. What does that mean? It means if you were to insert human genes into their cells, the cellular machinery would still transcribe them into proteins, and vice versa. However, there are slight deviations in post-translational processing which can cause the functions to jam or fail in the final stages. Speaking of genes, you have probably heard of intergenic regions, commonly referred to as junk DNA. In simple terms, these are segments that do not directly code for proteins. They are like the footnotes or torn pages left behind by evolution. Some are deactivated genes, others are useless transposons. Occasionally, they serve as buffers, protecting real genes from radiation or helping histones lock into place. But generally, they are just spare parts. However, the genome of the Grey is completely different. Their so-called junk DNA is disturbingly uniform. It is filled with repetitive sequences, and the spacing between genes is nearly identical throughout the entire genome. Their genome is significantly smaller than a human's, with fewer protein-coding genes. This indicates that their genetic system has been optimized. The redundant, inefficient links have been stripped away. This kind of perfect uniformity is almost certainly not the result of natural evolution. It looks like it was designed. As the research went deeper, they discovered an even more mysterious feature. In the middle of every single gene, there is a specific sequence called a TPR, or tripalindrome region. This structure likely allows their genetic engineers to insert or delete genes with extreme precision and speed. It implies that their genetic modification isn't done by the body adapting over time, but relies on external tools perhaps intervening at the very earliest stages of embryonic formation. Since their genes are artificially designed, it is not surprising that there are differences between individuals. They are likely similar to an ant colony, divided into different castes based on function, some designed for action, some for research, others for reproduction. Each one is programmed for a specific role. What is truly terrifying is that some of their genes are identical to those of humans, and even certain Earth animals. The base pairs match perfectly, one for one. It doesn't look like imitation, it looks like a direct copy and paste. Yet, alongside these, they possess a vast number of genes that do not exist anywhere on Earth. The functions of these genes remain completely unknown. Decoding them is one of the core objectives of the entire program. During the experiments, researchers also noticed something fascinating. The cells of the Grey are extremely picky. Standard viral vectors cannot penetrate them, and liposome transfection causes immediate cell death. In the end, they had to use a gene gun to physically force the genes inside. But the moment they added fetal bovine serum to the culture medium, those cells began to grow frantically. This suggests that buried within their alien code, there might be a growth switch that is triggered by animal biology. Let's look at the body. Superficially, the Grey resembles a human. They stand about 1.5 meters tall, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. But look closer, and everything is different. That legendary gray skin? It isn't real skin. It is a synthetic biological film, likely a suit designed to protect them from external environments. This film offers little thermal insulation, but it is highly resistant to liquid penetration and possesses other unknown functions. Beneath this film, their actual skin is white, incredibly smooth, and completely hairless, with only minor wrinkles visible at the joints. Reports state that the gray film feels somewhat greasy to the touch, and when that layer is peeled back, it releases a pungent odor described as burnt hair mixed with ammonia. Researchers speculate this smell is related to the glands and pores beneath the skin, which connect directly to their excretory system. The head is arguably the most unique feature. It features those massive eyes, set in a smooth face with almost no nose bridge. They have 2 small nostrils, but no protrusion. A narrow mouth with no lips. The ears are merely ear canals with no external auricle. While the mandible, the jawbone, is present, the chewing muscles are severely atrophied. Inside the mouth, no teeth, no tongue. The nasal cavity goes straight back with no olfactory bulb, meaning they likely have no sense of smell. Even stranger, the mouth leads to the esophagus, and the nose leads to the trachea. The 2 passages are completely separated. They do not connect. Covering their eyes is a semi-transparent film. This acts as a filter for light and protection against environmental irritants. When removed, the eyes look more normal. Yet they are 3 times larger than a human's and lack eyelids entirely. In other words, they never blink. This design suggests they possess superior night vision. That semi-transparent film is likely there to protect their retinas from high-intensity light. The sclera matches their skin color. The iris is pale gray, and the pupil is a shiny pitch black. Their lens is rounder, and the muscles used for focus are incredibly developed. Incredibly, their retina contains at least 6 types of cone cells. Humans only have 3. This means they can see a spectrum of light far beyond our comprehension, likely extending into the ultraviolet and perhaps even infrared bands. Their brain structure is more complex than ours, divided into 4 main lobes. The central lobe appears to be a fusion of the brainstem and the cerebellum. The total brain volume is about 20% larger than a human of the same height, with denser gyri and more glial cells. The most confusing feature is a series of special nodules on their central lobe. Under a microscope, these nodules resemble precise biological circuitry. Some speculate this is the key to how they interact directly with their technology. Their necks are long and thin. Because the esophagus and trachea are separated, and there are no vocal cords, they cannot speak. The chest muscles are poorly developed, yet we can identify familiar structures: pectorals, trapezius, deltoids. They have ribs and a sternum, but no nipples. The abdomen is wider than the chest, protruding slightly forward, but there is no navel. The pelvis is clearly defined, yet there are no genitalia and no anus. Their hands have 4 fingers, including an opposable thumb, no fingernails. Their fingerprints form concentric circles. The fingers are noticeably longer, and the musculature for the fingers is located entirely within the palm, unlike humans, where the forearm drives the movement. The feet appear to have 2 toes, but dissection reveals that each toe is actually formed by 2 fused bones. The foot is slender, with severely atrophied muscles. Their skeletal structure is similar to ours, composed of collagen and hydroxyapatite. But curiously, inside the bone marrow, researchers found copper oxide crystals. No one knows their purpose, but it is confirmed to not be a pathological condition. Their blood cells are not generated in the marrow, but mature in a thymus-like organ. The bone cross-sections show osteons and osteocytes, but almost no osteoblasts or osteoclasts. This implies their bones have stopped growing. They cannot absorb minerals or adapt to mechanical stress anymore. Overall, the body of the gray looks like a tool. Everything is designed for function. No vestigial organs, no trace of emotion. Their body is not a result of natural evolution, but rather the work of a creator. Their cellular respiration relies on oxidizing organic matter for energy, just like us. However, their lungs do not pump air in and out. Instead, they utilize a unidirectional airflow system, remarkably similar to avian biology birds. This design ensures air flows in only one direction, maximizing gas exchange efficiency. This allows them to absorb massive amounts of oxygen in a very short time, presumably to feed the immense energy consumption of that large brain. Furthermore, they have no vocal cords. Sound is produced by a membrane at the junction of 2 air sacs, which vibrates to create noise. This might explain why their language often sounds electronic or synthesized. The heart is located centrally under the sternum. It has 2 atria and 2 ventricles, similar to a human heart. The circulatory system is also standard, though the pulmonary capillaries are thinner, allowing for faster gas exchange. However, before blood returns to the heart, it passes through a structure called the hepatorenal organ. This organ acts as a combined filter and osmotic regulator. Their blood is chemically similar to humans, but has a higher plasma ratio and significantly higher levels of copper and glucose. The color is brownish, as if mixed with rust or metal. Even stranger, their red blood cells can bind copper ions in addition to hemoglobin. Researchers guess this is used to neutralize ammonia in the blood. Remember, they have no anus and no urethra. All metabolic waste is excreted through millions of tiny pores on their skin. The hepatorenal organ functions as a liver and kidney combined, purifying the blood. The waste, primarily ammonia, is transported to the skin and excreted. As the ammonia evaporates, it draws heat away from the body, turning their skin into a natural cooling system. Their digestive system is extremely simplified. There is no true stomach, only a pseudo-stomach, acting as a holding pouch. Digestion happens in a tube, similar to the small intestine. Because they lack teeth and have a rigid esophagus, they cannot eat solids. We presume they consume a high-energy liquid nutrient, a soup rich in sugar, protein, and copper. Without external technological support, they would likely be unable to survive on Earth. Their endocrine system is largely a mystery. Though their cells do react to bovine growth hormone, they seem to have innate immunity, but lack adaptive immunity like humans. Their muscles are primarily composed of type I fibers, slow-twitch endurance muscles. They have 10 times more of these than type 2 fast-twitch fibers. In other words, they are not strong, but they can maintain physical activity for incredibly long periods without fatigue. Finally, researchers suspect the presence of artificial molecular machines inside their bodies. Copper seems to play a key role here, possibly as a catalyst or a material for biological circuitry. In conclusion, the gray appears to be a carefully engineered system. Every structure exists for efficiency, control, and energy conservation. They resemble less of a natural life form and more of a manufactured, intelligent biological device. Okay, we will stop here for today. Why do the Greys exist? What secrets are they hiding? And how do they view concepts like the soul and life and death? We will continue this discussion in the next episode.